Deborah, placemaking is a term that's kind of growing, I guess, in use when we think about urban design and places. Do you think there's a difference between placemaking and urban design?
I do. Placemaking, maybe it's the term urban in the word urban design. Placemaking is absolutely critical for the development of a country like Australia. In New South Wales we have, or the government, I don't say we, the government has relatively recently adopted what they call complying code developments. So that there's a state policy which overrides local planning controls, which covers the entire state, which is if you build a house, for example, and they extend that to other building types, that complies with these complying codes, you don't need to get any approval, or the assessment process is almost automatic. What that assumes, and I think that is a problem, is that the places in far north of New South Wales, in far west of New South Wales, in the snowy mountains of New South Wales and in Sydney are basically all the same in terms of the characteristics of that place. I personally believe that the buildings we design should be responsive to the local characteristics and not be homogenous. And it's in making places is about responding to the characteristics of Sydney Harbour or the characteristics of our fabulous dry plains, Western Plains, or the mountains that down in the mountains up in the Blue Mountains or Katoomba, or wherever it may be. Whilst we try to make them all the same, we've got a problem, and we are actually doing ourselves an enormous disservice. But urban design, I do believe, is actually more than placemaking. Placemaking is absolutely critical to urban design as well, but urban design actually starts dealing with different characteristics, the characteristics of population density, urban places as opposed to regional or rural. So that's where I differentiate between placemaking as a general goal and urban design as a more specific type of activity which is related to placemaking.
Deborah, as a Queenslander and I guess an outsider of New South Wales, the Urban Design Advisory Service in which you work seemed to be very successful in delivering information and policies and protocols from a government perspective. What happened to the advisory service, and I guess, is there a role for government to deliver or facilitate good urban design?
I actually think there's not only a role, there's an obligation for government to deliver good urban design. The urban design was very successful and came to be recognised as one of the leaders in urban design in New South Wales in a very short space of time. And what that demonstrated was there was a hunger for better understanding of how local councils or organisations or developers can actually look at what they're doing in a more outcome-focused way. They've been dealing with planning controls for decades, and the planning controls were all about setbacks and controls which were numeric, and not many of them actually looked at the place in terms of what are the characteristics, what are the people characteristics, not just the built characteristics, and how do you integrate all of those to form a vision for a community. We prepared a lot of very useful publications. They were very well received. I must also say that at the time I set up the Urban Design Advisory Service, we had a terrific team. So it wasn't just, there were a lot of people who are very committed and very passionate and very skilled. They're highly articulate and very good at explaining to local councils and local councillors what urban design, good urban design could mean and how it could add value. And it was well received by the Minister and Government, and was influential in changing the quality of quite a number of aspects of development in New South Wales. One of the outcomes of the Urban Design Advisory Services work was the development of what's known as CEP 65, which is the Design Excellence Program, which looks at not only the design of urban places but also how to improve what was then considered to be substandard apartment designs. So I think yes, state government does have an important role to be leaders not only in urban design but leaders in every aspect of their activities. The role of a government is actually to, on behalf of their communities, of the state or of the Australian nation, to provide leadership. And you don't provide leadership from the back, you provide leadership from the front, understanding what the opportunities are, capitalising and utilising those benefits and opportunities, and bringing the community along with you they will support positive initiatives. It doesn't have to be the community. Excuse me. The community gets upset when the government initiatives and programs